So there comes a time in every really pleasant evening of short stories when there's one about periods. Closer to the mic. We're talking about periods. Yes, I am talking about menstruation. We have arrived at that moment, and I realized that I just made all the men in here really uncomfortable, okay? Which is something I absolutely sympathize with, that wanting to deny that periods actually exist in the world, because for a long time in my life, I was pretty oblivious to the fact that I had my own period. I mean, I was what you might call a bad menstruator. Another friend of mine has called this condition period blindness. I realize that most of the women in this room are giving me looks like that. It's like, whatever does that mean? I don't understand, because yeah, most of the women in this room have had that on lockdown for about the last 10 to say 40 years of their lives, but not me. I mean, I don't know whether it was because I didn't get my period till I was 17, so I was a little late to the game, or whether it's just because I am a little bit scatterbrained. But up until very, very recently, it was like every month my period would come. It was a surprise. It'd be like, what? This is happening again so soon? I didn't get it. When I was younger, this wasn't actually something I was terribly concerned about. I just came to accept the fact that, like, those rust-colored stains on my underwear were just going to be a part of my life forever. I was fine. I was fine with it. Totally fine with that one time that I went over to my friend's parents' house, went to use his bathroom, and took my tampon out and wrapped it in toilet paper neatly and put it on the sink, but somehow forgot to put it in the trash can before leaving the bathroom. His parents came back from out of town, and his dad and his wife found the tampon in the bathroom and confronted my friend about it, who totally called me out. But it didn't really bother me all that much. It was just like, that's, it's okay. It's just, that's how it is. But then it did actually start to bother me when I was 23. And my ex-boyfriend moved in with me. We moved in together, and it went from something that I was pretty indifferent about, the whole oblivious thing. It hadn't really affected anyone else except me and my friend's dad. And and it went from this thing that, right, so I was sort of indifferent about to something I became really insecure about, because while, this was something, part of like a constellation of things about me that he actually liked a lot before we moved in together. After we moved in together, he had to deal with the tampon on the sink every other month, and things sort of changed. At any rate, our relationship got a little bit dysfunctional. And so when he tried to bring that up with me, like, maybe you could work on that and change that, all he got was a big, like, fuck you, that's just who I am. A couple years ago, he and I broke up, surprisingly. It was a traumatic breakup. There was a lot of anger, there was a lot of fighting about money. I mean, I basically felt like we had gone through a divorce without any of the support that people who are actually married can get when they get a divorce, like the emotional support of a marriage counselor or the legal support of a lawyer who might have made it so I didn't lose some money in that transaction. So a couple months, by a couple months I mean about 10 months later, I'm still sort of wallowing in all of the anger and guilt and shame of that colossal disaster. When a friend of mine is like, you have got to go out on a date. And I'm like, I don't want to go out on a date. And she's like, Kristin, you have got to sign up for an online dating website and you have got to go out on a date. And I'm like, fine, I'll do it. So I sign up for OkCupid. Yeah, but I booby-trapped my profile. I let off with a line, I do not expect to age gracefully. Then I continued, I sometimes come off as an asshole to highly sensitive people. And then, all I wrote in that you should message me if section is, how's about do not message me if I'd have to pull teeth to get you to go to the National Museum of Dentistry. So, yeah, 2 guys messaged me. One whose parents were both dentists. And the other who liked terrible, terrible puns just about as much as I did. I chose him, and we went out on a date, and it was good. It was actually really way less awkward than I thought it was going to be. We went out on a second date, and it was borderline great. I mean, we talked for about 4 hours straight, and every new thing we discovered we had in common seemed like some sort of small victory for us. We left the bar that night holding hands and walking around the block, stopping to make out on street corners. It was that good. Afterwards, when I had to go home, he looked at me and he said, when can I see you again? I said, how about Wednesday? That was 4 days away. And he said, that seems like a long time from now. And I said, yeah, I guess it does. So we went out on a date that Wednesday, and it was that same kind of time-altering good. Like, I didn't even look up from our conversation or look up around the bar for what must have been about 5 hours, because by the time I looked down at my watch, I realized it was after midnight and that I'd missed the last metro train home to Alexandria. At this point, I'm thinking, right, I should probably just take a cab. But then he looks at me and he says, you know, you could stay at my place. And I was like thinking, and I was like, you know what? I really like this guy. I don't think he's going to judge me for going home with him, and I really just want to get this healing process over with. So we go to his house, and by house I mean small studio apartment in an old building, and we get through the door, and we pull out the futon, and we lie down on the bed, and actually, the sex is pretty good. It's not mind-alteringly awesome or anything. I mean, we were both pretty nervous, but it was solidly good, and I went to bed really happy. But the next morning I wake up and it's still dark outside. which means, and it's August, which means that it's really early in the morning. And I'm sort of waking up and I hear that he's already in the shower. And as I'm sort of coming into my own body a little bit more, I feel something a little liquidy and a little warm between my legs. And I am like, oh shit, oh shit, oh. And so I hop up from the bed just to make sure, and I'm looking in my and yes, I have absolutely started my period. And at this point, I'm freaking out in my head. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this has happened. Of course this has happened. Of course this has happened to you. This happens to you every month. You're such a... You're such a fuck up. You're so gross. This is so gross. You were really trying to turn over a new leaf here, and now look what happened. Oh my God, oh my God. And so, as this is going through my mind, I hear the shower switch off, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get a game plan. He cannot know that this is happening. And so I'm like, okay, what do I need first? First, what I need is pants. And so I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, got the pants. And as I'm about to put the pants on, he comes out of the bathroom, and I look at him, and I'm just like, hey, how do you sleep? Meanwhile, in my head, I'm still freaking. I'm like, how can this situation possibly be okay? And the biggest problem is that his sheets are navy blue. The blankets are sort of rumpled over the bed. I have no idea what the damage on the bed might be. No clue. I haven't had a chance to scope that out. And so I'm like, all right, what I'm gonna do is this. And so as he starts reaching into the closet for his shirt, I'm like craning my neck over to the bed, like, okay, now I can, no. He's reaching for his pants, I'm still craning my neck, no. He's going to turn on the coffee water, and I'm like, I can't tell. 30 seconds. Okay, I have no way of knowing if this actually happened or not. So we fold up the futon, we get out of there, and at this point, I'm like, I think I'm screwed, because I've gotten so worked up in my head about this that I'm like, you know what, if he finds that bloodstain on there is no way he is ever calling me again. Because even though we had a couple of really, really amazing dates and we seemed to be really getting along, it was like, why would someone like that want to be with someone like me? Oh, gross. Yeah, so he did call me the next day, actually, and he didn't say anything about it, and I figured I was totally safe. Like, somehow it had just stayed in here, and I'd gotten all somehow brilliantly lucky. Of course, after a couple more months of dating him, I realized I was doing this weird thing where I was sort of baiting him in to making me feel better about being such a fuck up. And I was bringing up all of these ways in which he could make me feel okay about that, and realized that I was doing that so that I didn't have to feel okay about it myself, so that I didn't actually have to deal with it. And I was like, man, I took a step back. I was like, man, that is really messed up. I gotta get that situation under control. So we broke up. And I just said, listen, I need to have some time to work on some things for myself. And most people use that as a cover for I just met someone new. But I actually meant it. And so now, I am proud to report that I know that my period comes every 28 days. I'm 30, great to know that. Thank you.